One of the things that makes great teaching great is that you have great stories. One of the things that makes great preaching great is that it includes great stories. One of the things that makes a great book great is that it includes great stories. And one of the things that we love about the Bible is that it includes so many great stories. And we're going to look today at one of the great stories, one of the dramatic stories of the Bible, one of the stories we love to read to our children, along with David and Goliath and the parting of the Red Sea and so on. And this is the showdown at Mount Carmel. And we want to look in this story about what we can learn about God, what we can learn about ourselves, and what can we learn about Christian living. What is the application of this passage? We always want to be doers of the word and not hearers only, and so deceive ourselves. And so let's look at this classic passage today, 1 Kings chapter 18. So Ahab sent word throughout all Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. I'll show you a map here. It's up in the northern region of Israel. And I've actually got a picture and then some drone footage if you'd like to see what it looks like on Mount Carmel today. It's not a terribly high mountain, about 1,700 feet. I hiked yesterday. No, that was the day before. Yesterday, I hiked the highest peak in Texas. It was about 3,000 feet vertical, and this would be about half that. At any rate, verse 21, Elijah went before the people and said, "How long will you waver between two opinions?" Now, let's just pause right there and think about what is the application of that for our life. How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. If Baal is God, follow him. But the people said nothing. Baal is the most important of the many gods of the Canaanites. He represented the harvest and fertility, and the worship Baal often included prostitution. Quite a church growth strategy, you think? Verse 22, then Elijah said to them, I am the only one of the Lord's prophets left, but Baal has 450 prophets. We're going to look next week at Elijah's depression, and we get a hint about his depression there. And you might ask your people, by the way, to read next week's passage and see what we can learn about depression from that. Verse 23, get 2 bulls for us. Let Baal's prophets choose one for themselves, and let them cut it into pieces, put some stakes on the wood, but not set it on fire. I will prepare the other bull and put it on the wood, but not set it on fire. Then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord. The God who answers by fire, he is God. Then all the people said, what you say is good. Now I'm skipping here to the New Living Translation. I'll show you why in just a second. But verse 26, so they prepared one of the bulls and placed it on the altar. Then they called on the name of Baal from morning until noontime, shouting, O Baal, answer us. And we learned something about Christian living from that we're going to look at in just a moment. But there was no reply of any kind. Then they danced, hobbling around the altar they had made about noontime. They started about 6 in the morning, about sunup. At noontime, Elijah began mocking them. You'll have to shout louder, he scoffed, for surely he is a god. Perhaps he is daydreaming, or perhaps he is relieving himself. I say it respectfully, perhaps he is sitting on the pot. Or maybe he is away on a trip, or is asleep, or needs to be awakened. So they shouted louder, following their normal custom. What do we learn about our God, Christianity, and what do we learn about non-Christianity? They cut themselves with knives and sword until the blood gushed out. They all raved all afternoon until the time of the evening sacrifice, but still there was no sound, no reply, and no response. Elijah, he took 12 stones, one to represent each of the tribes of Israel, and he used the stone to rebuild the altar in the name of the Lord. Then he dug a trench around the altar, large enough to hold about 3 gallons. He piled wood on the altar, cut the bull into pieces, and laid the stakes, I like to say, on the wood. Then he said, fill 4 large jars of water and pour the water over the offering and the wood. After they had done this, he said, do the same thing again. And when they were finished, he said, now do it a 3rd time. So they did as he said, and the water ran around the altar and even filled the trench. At the usual time for offering the evening sacrifice, Elijah the prophet walked up to the altar and prayed. And look at what his prayer is like compared to the 12 hours of praying we've been looking at. O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, prove today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant. Prove that I have done all this at your command. O Lord, answer me. Answer me so that these people will know that you, O Lord, are God, and that you have brought them back to yourself. Immediately the fire of the Lord flashed down from heaven and burned up the young bull and the wood and the stones and the dust. It even licked up all the water in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell face down on the ground, and they cried out, "The Lord, He is God. Yes, the Lord, He is God." What do we learn about God, about ourselves, about Christian living from this? And my observation is this, and by the way, I stole many of these ideas. I'm not sure exactly which ones now. But I did a Google search for this story and came across an article by David Jeremiah. And want to do a little shout out to him, and thanks to David Jeremiah. I like to say when David Jeremiah starts writing better sermons, I'll start doing better teaching. But anyway, his first observation and mine is this: all religions are not the same. All religions are not the same. This is a very popular idea in our culture, that you have your belief and I have my belief, and they're all heading to the same place. And your truth is your truth, and my truth is my truth, and all truth and all religions are about the same. And it is simply not true. Some people claim that all religions are essentially the same and are only superficially different. The truth is, all religions are essentially different and are only superficially the same. Some say all religions are similar because they all teach ethics. The truth is that other world religions fundamentally seek to